In many of my videos, you'll hear me talk about the importance of strengthening the rotator cuff and releasing the pecs to really put your shoulder girdle into an optimal position, especially when you're going to go into any sort of action of carrying, pushing, holding, planks, push-ups, anything like that. And really, even if you're not doing those things, just for the optimization of your posture and for the sake that you're not going to be wearing and tearing on your shoulder joint and your neck, even just when you're sitting and even just when you're standing and walking around in life. So it is so important to know, or at least be a little bit aware of, the whys of the shoulder and then how we can work towards having that more optimal position with the balance of the rotator cuff and the pecs. So it's tricky because I'll try to talk about isolated areas, but really the body is not isolated. As we know, it's a network. So many things will be impacted by the work that we do in one area. Many things will influence that area as well. So keep that in mind always. I'm going to isolate the areas, but I'll always weave it back in classes or in other tutorials, how it all comes together. Let's start with understanding the shoulder and the arm. So here is a model of the left shoulder. It would look something like this, right? So this is the left shoulder blade. It looks like an upside down triangle. And we've got the collarbone in the front. And then we've got the arm bone there that fits into that socket, right? Not as deep as what we know of a hip socket, but it's a socket. The thing about the shoulder is that it's so wonderful that we're so open and available. We have much more capacity with where we can reach and what we can do. We're not so limited. But it also makes the shoulder very vulnerable. And so we're grateful to the shoulder for all that it can do, but we also want to know what the shoulder is capable of and not overworking or overdoing or over asking something of our shoulder that it's not meant to do time and time and time again. So when we see the relationship of the arm bone, we've got the scapula at the back. It rests and it makes a joint with the rib cage, the back of the rib cage. The collarbone kind of weaves through its own bone, but it sort of weaves through the front of the shoulder blade or scapula and connects to this back part of the scapula. So this is that acromion of the shoulder blade. This is the spine of the shoulder blade into the acromion, and then this is the clavicle or collarbone, and it comes together. This is that AC joint here where we hear a lot of issues arise. So you know that relationship, and then here that arm bone is at the side of this little capsule. And it's not in this model, but I like to always mention the sternum, because the sternum then connects to the collarbone here and connects to the front of the ribs and has a lot to do with how we might be able to lift our chest, or with the ribs spread and open the chest to be able to talk story to the collarbone and the shoulder blade and then the arm. Now, without getting too crazy, just know that from the chest, the pec minor runs kind of on a diagonal up to the shoulder blade, okay? So think about this muscle that goes from the ribs, the front ribs, and it goes over to the shoulder blade. So if that guy is tight, it will start to pull whatever it's attached to forward. That's why the shoulder blade starts to look like it's coming up the hill and then it's stuck on top of the hill of the rib cage like this. Yeah? So when we lengthen the pec minor, then the shoulder blade has a chance to be back where it's supposed to be, which is on the back of the rib cage and gliding and sliding all around back there or stabilizing. Now, when we're talking about the pec major, that's running from the front ribs as well, but it's attaching to the arm bone. And so, as you can imagine, if it were tight, it's going to start to pull the arm bone forward and then even maybe like across the body. So this whole arm just sort of gets pulled across and maybe even internally spiraled. So several of things can start to happen with that. So you can imagine if you stretch the pec major, the arm bone goes back, the arm rotation is more where it should be, because for many of us, we have our arms are stuck in internal rotation and they're forward of our rib cage, and they may even kind of end up like on top of like the front of our body when they should be hanging out at the sides of the body with the knuckles facing out, not forward. So these are just a few quick like glances that you can see, oh, what's going on in my body? And so a lot of times people will fix their hand or their arm, but the source of the issue is likely coming from the chest to collarbones to shoulder blades and the relationship of the rib cage in between, right? So that's again why it can't be so simple as one piece. It's all involved. So that's the understanding of what's going on with the arm bone, with the shoulder blade, and the joint that's created with these bones up here. So we want to make sure that over time, the bone is living in the socket in the right place, not jammed forward, not jammed together, which is where a lot of us get our problems, our pinches, and our congestions there. When that happens in the front, as you can imagine, the back is getting blown out. So we're going to be weak in the back, we're going to get tight in the back, and then not only that, potentially getting injured, hence rotator cuff injuries. That's why there are so many of these rotator cuff injuries or frozen shoulder issues that we're dealing with. So this is a whole reason why we want to sort of get this understood and get this under control, and then apply these various stretches and exercises daily, like you're brushing your teeth or flossing your teeth and keeping your smile fresh. You're going to keep your body fresh.